If you grew up in a place like Canada, the US, or Europe, you've probably been told all your life that you're free, that the systems you live under, like government and capitalism, exist to keep you free, and that you could do whatever you want in life. These statements are propaganda. They are demonstrably false. Your life is planned out for you by other people, and to deviate from their plan will cause you to suffer. I'm Chris, and this is what had to be said. I've touched on this idea before on this channel, but I wanted to make a whole video fleshing it out. When I say your whole life is planned out for you, I don't mean literally every one of your actions is predetermined. I don't see any reason to believe that. I'm not talking about free will. In fact, I think it's a bit of a waste of time to talk about free will without taking into account institutions like the school, the law, the media, and the workplace. Institutions that all reduce your physical and mental freedom. Everyone's free to choose, just like someone with a gun to their head is free to choose, but only within limits that other people have set for them. To move outside those limits causes some kind of pain. Maybe psychic pain because we feel guilty for not doing what's expected of us, or maybe physical pain because a police officer is hitting us with a nightstick. When I say your life is planned for you, I mean these limits to our thinking and action, which I'm going to describe, are the product of design. I describe those systems in pretty much all the videos on this channel, and I've put links to a few relevant ones in the description. This video is about how our lives are planned under these systems and what the effects are. Let's consider a normal person's life under the modern-day capitalist nation-state. From birth, we're assigned a race, a gender, a nationality, and a religion. Think of the innumerable expectations that go along with those beliefs, with those labels. If you don't know what I mean, you might consider pausing this video and just thinking about everything it means to be a girl. A girl is supposed to like certain things, like dolls and dresses and the color pink. She's supposed to have long hair, and she's supposed to really care about her appearance. She might even be given a toy oven or kitchen set, while the boys are given toy soldiers. She's expected, or at least was until recently, to become a housewife. Her job would be cooking and cleaning and taking care of children. Nowadays, she's still expected to do all those things, but she might need a job too. I'm sure you can think of a million other unfair and unreasonable expectations we put on girls. There are just as many roles for boys. Kids of other genders, well, they aren't allowed to be different, so they get treated as boys or girls. Where do those expectations come from? We don't decide them for ourselves. Someone else does. Mostly our parents, but also just people in the same culture. Now consider how we're supposed to be because we're citizens, or because of our racial or religious labels, or any of the other things we're told we are. So right from the beginning, we're put into boxes. We're told that as this kind of person, you should act this way. If you don't, there must be something wrong with you, not society. You're no longer normal. You're no longer acceptable. We go to school where everything we do is what we're told to do. As soon as we do something we're not allowed, often just talking or moving, we're immediately forced back into compliance with authority. We learn very quickly to accept this extremely authoritarian way to live. And school teaches us these hierarchies are everywhere, that they're permanent, inevitable and for our own good, so we shouldn't resist them. The face of authority changes, and its reasons for claiming authority change too, but our attitude is always supposed to be one of submission and obedience. The authority makes the rules and is in charge of administering punishments. Our thinking is shaped by little nudges and suggestions here and there throughout our lives, especially in childhood. Many of them come from the daily instructions and reprimands of parents and teachers. Others come from classes like history, where we learn what to think about the country and whom we're supposed to admire. Media like movies and the news normalize all kinds of behavior for us. Every nudge we take in encourages or discourages some behavior or thought. They guide our thinking according to the officially sanctioned ideology and turn us into carbon copies of one another. Right from birth, other people tell us what to value. The result is most people's lives play out exactly the way they're expected to. School, work, marriage, kids, retirement, death. And we don't question it. But where did it come from? Why are people planning our lives? And most importantly, compared to how life could be, is this system in our interest? If you've been on this channel long enough, you know my answer. But as kids, we're new to the world and we don't realize all these limits are artificial and unnecessary, and we take them to school with us. In school, we learn to accept these beliefs and we learn how to justify them. We don't learn to question, but to stop questioning and start obeying. The people who do best at obeying get called smart. The people who resist get called bad kids. But even the so-called bad kids get broken down in the end. We all become who the school wants us to be, a believer in authority. Some of us unlearn these patterns after educating ourselves, but it's impossible to succeed in school if we don't follow orders. Every day as kids, and for some people, every day as adults, we're instructed what to do and how to do it. We learn about all our obligations to get good grades, to graduate, to get good jobs, to get married and have kids, to follow the law, to believe in the country, etc., etc. The usual explanation is, they're just teaching us how to live in the so-called real world. But actually what they're doing is creating that world. They're perpetuating the existence of social contracts by giving us reasons to believe in them. They show us maps of the world so we think it's normal to have nation states. They show us diagrams of how democracy supposedly works so we think we understand democracy now. We could finish school with a wide-eyed fascination with the world and a passion to work with our peers to solve its problems. Instead, we finish school with a sigh and go look for a job. Of course, we're given the appearance of choice. You can choose either Democrat or Republican. They'll do more or less the same things to you, and you have to accept the ruling party's decision, so you're not allowed to resist. But you get to vote, so you're free. You can choose whichever job you want, but only if it pays well, and if it doesn't, well, you should reconsider it. But since we're taught to believe we can choose any job, if we don't get that high-paid job, we're failures and it's our fault. This perception could only come from people who don't understand how a capitalist economy works. Capitalism requires low-wage workers in order to make owners rich. Capitalism creates unemployment and poverty and homelessness. These things are not personal failings. They're inevitable consequences of how people get rich. But we grew up surrounded by assumptions about why capitalism is the only viable economic system, just like liberal democracy is the only viable political system. And the only acceptable behavior is within the rules of those systems. There's plenty of choice in the market. Heinz supposedly has 57 varieties of ketchup. But what does that do for my freedom? Would I be less free if there was only one? We're expected to buy lots of stuff, and somehow that's considered freedom. We get nice cars and nice clothes and neat lawns and antiques. But why? So we can appear as good as or superior to the people around us. Life is not a competition. We've just been tricked into thinking it is. In the book 1984, which one day I will do a series about, there are huge posters of Big Brother all over, which are there to shape the behavior of citizens of Oceania, to stop them from any kind of unorthodoxy, whenever they might get the urge. In our society, we have a different kind of poster. The advertisement. Ads don't have scary warnings. They have beautiful people smiling. But they have just as much effect on our behavior. Ads normalize the fact that everywhere we go, someone is trying to sell us something. Everything is money, and money is everything. Ads make us believe all these things are necessary, so we're always buying or saving up. You need the newest products with the latest innovations. But the newest products quickly go from being cool and useful to becoming necessary. Like how we now have to get smartphones so we can work on weekends. Buying stuff leaves us unfulfilled. But most people don't think there are other things you could be spending that money on. What if you gave that money to poor people? But we're not supposed to think of poor people. We're supposed to buy stuff. The PR world also tells us how to look. In 1984, again, members of the party all had to dress the same, so there was no individuality. In our world, there's a kind of fake individuality, where you're told you can express yourself by buying clothes and phones that are slightly different from the next person's. And you can be any size and shape you want, but you'll get shamed and bullied for being fat. They even want us to change our skin color. Light-skinned people go to tanning salons, and dark-skinned people buy whitening cream. There's a lot of money in making people feel insecure about their appearances. We're told we're unique, but we're only allowed to be unique within other people's limits. We can listen to whatever music we like, sure, but if we don't act the way people of supposedly the same gender are supposed to act, then we'll get treated as an embarrassment. If we don't believe all the slogans about our country and follow all the civic rituals, we get punished. If we don't like the religion and try to leave, we become outcasts. We're told to express ourselves, but only within the accepted limits. We're not allowed to talk back. We're not supposed to question institutions. Just shut up and let them decide right and wrong for us. Half the time, we're not even allowed the superficial expression that an outfit provides, because we have to wear a uniform.
We need to talk. Do you know what this is about?
My, flair?
Yeah. Or, your lack of flair, because, I'm counting and I only see 15 pieces. Let me ask you a question, Joanna. What do you think of a person who only does the bare minimum?
Huh, what do I think? You know what, Stan? if you want me to wear 37 pieces of flair like your pretty boy over there, Brian, why don't you just make the minimum 37 pieces of flair?
Well, I thought I remembered you saying that you wanted to express yourself.
What was Joanna supposed to do to express herself? Find 15 buttons that say, "I work here so I don't starve"? She's not allowed to express herself. She has a job. If you have a job, you're not allowed to tell the truth. You've got to smile when you don't feel like smiling, and be patient toward people who are rude with you. You're even expected to say you don't work for money, but because you enjoy the work.
All right, there's my flair, okay? And this is me expressing myself.
Our working life is structured for us, just like school is. We perform a select number of tasks for as long as we're told to, and if we don't do them, we get punished. We're expected to work toward promotions so we can get a nice house in the suburbs. If they tell us to work longer hours, we do it, because that's how jobs work, just like school. You're rewarded for obeying and punished for questioning. So obey long enough and you'll have your own house with a lawn and a dog in the suburbs. Your whole life, you're told that is your dream. That is what you should strive for, and the correct way to do it is to do what other people tell you all the time. But what's even the point of a house if you have to spend your whole life working to pay for it, so you're so busy you have no time to relax in it? Is it because you have too much stuff? And what's the point of having kids when you have to spend all your time working and never get to see them? And of course, other people's influence on us doesn't diminish once we live out in the suburbs. We have to pay taxes and bills and pay for insurance and pay off loans, but we're also expected to save and invest. You need a 6 months of savings fund, a rainy day fund, a retirement fund, a college fund for your kids, etc. You've got to keep your lawn mowed, your fence painted, and your yard clean. And you're never allowed to slow down and stop working, so even after a long day, you're supposed to find ways to invest your money in the stock market or in real estate. I was told I could pursue my passions. Well, what if obeying bosses and buying stock isn't actually my passion? Because behind the rhetoric about being free to do whatever you want lies the more important call to be realistic. Being realistic means you should give up on your dreams. It means focusing on money rather than passion. Same with the word success. Success in a capitalist system means making more money than other people. Keep running, rats. No time to relax. Because if you're not rich yet, now you need to monetize your hobbies. That's right. What you used to do for fun at your own pace now requires schedules, advertising, customers, taxes. In the confines of this system, in the prison of its assumption that we're all supposed to be trying to get rich, anytime you want to relax, you're being lazy. Lazy is a word that people use to guilt you into working toward their goals. If you stop working while you're on the job, the boss will tell you to hurry up. But there's also a boss inside your head telling you, even if you're not at work, you should be hustling. Doing what you want to do is laziness. Working all day so you can make money is freedom. We don't realize we're locked in these patterns because they very quickly become normal. As I've explained in several videos, historically these institutions and the duties that come with them were introduced by force, imposed on everyone. So of course, people resisted at first. But resistance initially meets with extreme violence and tends to fade with time, and propaganda takes its place. Now everyone has an excuse for why these things are good and necessary. Of course we need schools. How could anyone possibly learn anything if they aren't stuffed into a classroom and told to do everything an authority figure says? Of course we need a few people to have a monopoly on making and imposing laws on everyone else. That's called democracy. Of course our country is the best country. We have the best insert culturally specific justifications. There are even millions of people who feel guilty about having sex their whole lives because parents and priests told them it's shameful and dirty. If authority says it's wrong, you deserve to be punished for it. If authority says it's right, and you don't have to think anymore. These patterns feel normal, but they take their toll. Some people become obsessed with power or with money and fame. Some get extremely competitive and just want to screw people over. Some people learn to bully and control and take sexual advantage of other people, and they find hierarchies like the police and the corporation they can exploit to do it. Some people are so mesmerized by authority and its empty words, they sign up to use violence on its behalf, maybe as cops or security or even the military, pointing guns in the faces of people they don't know because someone in a uniform told them to. Then there are those who have jobs they hate, but they can't think of an alternative. Their imaginations have been stunted. Most of us fail to live up to other people's expectations for us, so we might get depressed or even suicidal. We might have an addiction or two. Half of my generation is mentally ill, and half are trying to get rich. This doesn't have to be normal, but it's inevitable as long as we let the ruling class and its propaganda teams define normal for us. Like all my videos, I can really just scratch the surface here to show you the basics so you can start to see things differently. If you want to know more, you can read books or check out other videos here. That's what they're for. Or ask me in the comments. Usually on this channel, I just point out how things are and say they're not inevitable. Changing them starts with questioning. Questioning the words we use, our beliefs and assumptions, our values and ideals, our history and our future. You can do that, right? Maybe you can help others too. Our freedom is tied up with that of everybody else, and we can get it back by working together. Okay, that's enough for today. See you next week.